The Indianapolis Colts are 3-0, and they are officially a good football team. They won the first week at home against Miami. Very fair question. Is this real? Is Miami bad? Or are the Colts actually going to be good at football? And then they play host to the Denver Broncos, a team that is 1-2, but I think that if you've watched the Broncos play, they look like a playoff team. Okay, their two losses came against two really good opponents. The Chargers, who I think are the third best team in the AFC, and the Indianapolis Colts, who are a legitimately good football team. Because bad teams usually don't go on 3-game winning streaks, even if the schedule is a little bit lighter compared to the other teams that have started 3-0. Bad teams also don't have the third leading passer in football. They also usually don't have the leading rusher in football or the leader in all-purpose yards. And they have all three of those things right now in both Daniel Jones and Jonathan Taylor. So yes, the schedule might be light to start the season, but they have a lot of just really good players. The two bad teams that they played, they just utterly dominated, beating the Dolphins 33-8, and then on Sunday beating the Titans, 41-20. Really tough to break 40 in the NFL. Okay, and as soon as that game started, third play of the game, Cam Ward throws a pick six, and I immediately felt good about my Colts minus 4.5 bet. Okay, this Colts team is just good. They're not the Bills, they're not the Ravens, they're not the Rams or the Eagles, but they are a good football team who should win 11 games because they're in a weak division, and they should win the AFC South and host a home playoff game, which if you're a Colts fan, you haven't made the playoffs in 4 years, you should be ecstatic about that. Okay, and my hope with the Colts is they only do one thing great, and then they do a lot of things well. I would still classify Daniel Jones as a bus rider. He's not driving the bus, but he's running the offense to perfection, although the offense, I do think, is limited with him playing quarterback. Okay, and if you're a Colts fan and that upsets you, I would just ask you to watch Daniel Jones and then watch Lamar Jackson play football tonight. And then I think you'll be like, yeah, there's some limitations between Daniel Jones and the best quarterbacks in the NFL, which is okay. I think if you're a Colts fan, you should be ecstatic with what you've gotten from Daniel Jones to start the year. So he limits them a little bit offensively, even though he is running the offense to absolute perfection right now. The Colts run the football on the border of great. I still think that I like the Eagles, the Lions, the Ravens. The Jaguars went into their Week 3 game against Houston, leading the NFL in yards per rush at 5.7 yards per carry, which is nuts. I think those teams run the football a little bit better just on a down-to-down basis. The Colts' average yards per carry is up high because Jonathan Taylor's, he ripped off a 70-yard run against the Broncos in Week 2, ripped off a 47-yard run against the Titans yesterday. He had a really long one against the Dolphins as well, so that's brought up the average. But I don't think that they've consistently picked up 4 or 5 yards a carry. Meanwhile, teams like the Ravens and the Eagles, they do that. Okay, so they're a really good running team. Not quite great. I don't like the depth at running back either. That's part of the issue. Tyler Goodson and DJ Giddens just don't really do it for me. With that being said, Jonathan Taylor obviously playing at an elite level, leading the NFL in rushing and all-purpose yards. He's added the ability to catch the ball out of the backfield into his game, which has been huge for them. The secondary is good. I just don't trust Xavier Howard, who's playing, or anyone really, who's playing opposite of Charvarius Ward. So that's kind of concerning, but the other guys on the back end are good. Kenny Moore, I know he got hurt yesterday, but when he's healthy, he's as good of a nickel corner as anyone in the NFL. Obviously, Charvarius Ward, really good player. Nick Cross and Cam Bynum on the back end have both been really good to start the season. The run defense still makes me nervous when it comes to the Colts. Yesterday, it was much better, but the Dolphins averaged 7 yards a carry against them. Same thing with the Broncos. They ran the ball pretty effectively. Yesterday, though, they're playing the Titans, who didn't have their starting right tackle, J.C. Latham. And even when they have J.C. Latham, the Titans' offensive line is still bad. So, sure, they were a little bit better yesterday in the run game, but that is the one area of their team where I think it is legitimately not good. I'm not going to say bad, but it is below average at best. The pass rush, not great either. But there are some things to like. I thought Kwity Paye had a really nice game against the Titans. DeForest Buckner looks really good and healthy to start the season. Tyquan Lewis has 3 sacks through 3 games. If Laiatu Latu can just turn a corner, then I think I'll feel okay about the Colts pass rush, but Latu's got to become a guy in order for them to consistently have a good pass rush, and he just hasn't really done that yet. The one great part of their team, because I said that they did one thing great, the one great part of their team is the offensive line, and that gives you a chance to beat just about anybody. The difference in the Super Bowl last year was Jalen Hurts had an offensive line that could actually give him time, and Patrick Mahomes did not. They were playing a guard at tackle, and that was problematic. Okay, Jared Goff and the Lions became great when their offense became one of the 3 best in the NFL. Bo Nix had a really successful rookie season, in part because he played behind a great offensive line last year. Okay, a good offensive line is the second biggest elevator of an offense in the NFL. The first is obviously quarterback. Okay, if you want to disagree with that, but Patrick Mahomes has gotten to not 1 but 2 Super Bowls behind an average at best offensive line. He lost both of those games, by the way. And that is what is happening in Indianapolis. Okay, they have a legitimately good offensive line that is giving Daniel Jones time. They're opening up running lanes for Jonathan Taylor. And you're going to score a lot of points when those 2 things happen. And you're going to give yourself a chance to stay in every game when those 2 things happen. So if this Colts offensive line stays healthy, then they're going to be in every game that they play. Because Daniel Jones is doing a really good job. He's making all of the right decisions. The Colts have good weapons on the outside. Alec Pierce is becoming a little bit more than just a deep threat down the field guy. Michael Pittman Jr., he's on pace to break his career touchdown record, like his personal one. Josh Downs underneath is still a really good player. Tyler Warren is already one of the best tight ends in the NFL. So they've got an offensive line giving Daniel Jones times just to get the football to these really good players out on the edge. And then, of course, they're opening up running lanes for Jonathan Taylor, one of the best running backs in the NFL. Are the Colts good enough to win the Super Bowl? No. Don't think that they're good enough on the defensive front. But they are good enough to make the playoffs. And they're probably good enough to win a playoff game, depending on who else they play in the AFC. They just have to stay healthy. That is obviously the most important thing for every team in the NFL.